Good morning, everyone. It is Julia Yarbo coming to you with Keeping It Real Caregiving and our Sunday coffee chat and support session. Notice how I changed it to session as opposed to support hour. Why did I do that? I realized that as family caregivers or professional caregivers, we are busy, right? We don't really have that much extra time to just dilly-dally around. So I thought I'll go 30 minutes. And that way we can kind of connect, just go over a couple of things, make sure that everybody who is in the world of family caregiving knows that they are not alone in this journey. So good morning, everybody. I'm Julia Yarbo. If you're just joining us for one of our Sunday coffee chat and support sessions, the whole idea is just to kind of take a little breather, realize that you're not alone and that there are hundreds of thousands, literally millions of other people out there in our country and around the world who are family caregivers, facing many of the same hurdles, challenges, frustrations, seeking answers, looking for items to be able to say, hey, here's what I found that worked. And I think this would be great for you as well. So Imelda, thanks for joining. It's great to see you here. I appreciate it. And so here's how this works. First of all, I want to give a shout out to StreamYard, this streaming platform, because I absolutely love that we can all connect any place as long as you have the link to this. And so I have a couple of different slides and some screens. You all are online. You can say hello in the chat box. And if you see me glancing around, it's because I'm monitoring who's coming in. Feel free to just say hello, say where you're from, maybe what your caregiving situation is. And I just want to give you a quick little background as we get started of the whole idea of keeping it real caregiving. And so I don't have any slides that I popping up of me and my mom together, but in a nutshell, I'm Julia Yarbo. My career is as a broadcast journalist. I spent more than 25 years as a news anchor, reporter, broadcast journalist in Miami, Los Angeles, Louisville, Kentucky, Pensacola, Florida. Wrapped up my career here in Northern California, where I'm coming to you live from Chico in Northern California. And I took care of my mother pretty much since it was New Year's Eve 2000 when I moved her from Northern California to South Florida with me. Good morning, Marie, and good morning, Bridget. Thanks for joining in. Love to see everybody here. And so moved my mom back to South Florida with me, and she was still able to live on her own. She had her own little place, and I could see though that she was getting older. And early on, I pushed back against the idea of being a caregiver because I didn't want to feel that sense of responsibility. But as my mom began aging and having some other health problems, I realized that it was going to be me who was caring for her. Good morning, Mark. Good to see you here. And so over the years, I started realizing, wow, there's so much to this system of needing to help your parent emotionally or another loved one, not just parents, but somebody that you're caring for. I had to figure out medical systems, insurance systems, transportation, housing. I started learning about food and nutrition. And I started to see gaps in the system that the right hand didn't seem to know what the left hand was doing when it comes to care. There were also the financial aspects of how do we figure all this out? If you're in a situation where your loved one begins to have a changed mobility situation, how do you plan forward for that? And so one of the things that I started thinking about as a journalist was I need to collect these stories. I need to start writing. I need to start sharing. I need to find people to talk to, other caregivers, maybe other experts, because if I'm in the business and I know how to find information, but I'm having such a difficult time figuring it all out, what about everybody else out there, right? And so that was the start of Keeping It Real Caregiving. And I didn't actually have the opportunity to create a lot of content or reach people because I was in the middle of taking care of mom. So the last 6 years of my mom's life were the heavy duty. And good morning, Deanna. Thanks for joining from Washington. And in 2017, mom had a heart attack. And that's really what sort of led to this decline in mobility, in health, in independence. And she lived with me, but the care increased exponentially. And it was quite difficult. I won't lie to you. Those of you who are here in Northern California, if you happen to watch me as I was on the news early in the morning, what you didn't realize is that I was getting up super early to be at work, but I was also getting up in the middle of the night to make sure that I was taking care of my mother. And I started to, let's see, Mary Beth says, I can't hear anyone else having trouble. If you guys can hear, give a shout out, let me know. I have my microphone on and it doesn't look as if I'm having any issues. So let me know if you are able to hear okay. Let's see, Bridget says, Mary Beth Griffith, no. Volume is fine. Okay, so Mary Beth, maybe double check that you don't have it on mute, just in case. All right, so that was my story. Sadly, I lost my mother, Miss Nellie, in 2020, almost 2 years ago now, and it doesn't even feel like it's been 2 years. And so what I wanted to do today was just kind of give you a background on keeping it real caregiving, so that my goal is to sort of gather all of us together and really hear these voices and your stories, because I want to be more of an advocate and get more involved in the aging space and the aging industry. And I will tell you, it is an industry. For those of you who are just entering, just like any other field out there, it's an industry. There are those who are providing services, access, products, and it's an industry. So as any industry, people need to make money. So this is a unique industry because our focus needs to be about the care of the people who need the care and also taking care of caregivers, right? So I want all of you to, first of all, realize that if you are in this, we truly have to work together and bring our voices together in order to start to impact change. And one of the things I like to say, two things actually, is you don't know what you don't know, and knowledge is power. All right, so let that sink in, because when you don't know what you don't know, you end up in situations where all of a sudden you're in a crisis and then you're scrambling. And that's the gap where then some individuals within the aging industry can take advantage of us because we don't know what we don't know. So two things that I want everybody to consider, and that's why I call it keeping it real, is really talking about the items that we typically don't talk about or don't know about. All right, so I want to scroll through some of the folks that are on this morning and just say hi. So I think I welcomed, I'm going to scroll back up. Debbie, good to see you here. Mary Beth, I hope that you got your audio fixed. Deanna, again from Washington. Imelda coming in from Tucson, Arizona. Kimberly, thanks for being here. Bridget, Michael Miller, good to see you. It's been a long time. Checking in from South Florida. Keisha, nice to see you. What are you doing in Alabama? No, wait a minute. I'm thinking maybe this is a different Keisha. I worked with a different Keisha out here who has a care agency. So Keisha, it's good to see you from Wetumpka, Alabama. And kudos to you for taking care of your mom going on 10 years. I know it's not easy. My journey was exhausting. I can look back now and realize that I'm glad I did it, but in the moment, overwhelming. And that's another reason why I really wanted to do this, just so that we all know that when we feel that way, it's perfectly okay to feel that way. Clara, thanks for joining us from Las Vegas. Robin, 7 months that mom has been gone. My condolences. And I truly mean that, because it doesn't, the time can somewhat lessen it, but it doesn't feel real many days. I wish I could move my camera around and show you. My mom's closet has barely been touched. I have just not been able to get in there and handle all the items. Thinking about giving items away makes it feel like I'm giving my mother away. So I haven't done that yet. So we're going to talk a little bit about the whole idea of grief and bereavement in a moment. Mary Beth, hopefully you can figure out that audio situation. And Kimberly, it says, I'm moving to South Florida in hopes there are more services than in New Jersey. So I know, Michael, you're in South Florida. You're in the media business. Perhaps if you've come across any specific services in South Florida, you might be able to connect in with Kimberly. And Kimberly, I can tell you one thing that came about for me one of the reasons I left South Florida to come to Northern California back home is that I felt is because there were so many people and there are more services, but I felt like just a number. I felt like a cog in the machine and not a personal connection in terms of the care that I wanted to have for my mother. So just be aware of that. If you decide to move to South Florida, do your homework. Understand that there are different cultural landscapes involved. There are larger companies that own many of the care companies in relation to maybe private ownership. So that's something that you really want to understand. And also distance, proximity. Consider how close you might live to medical services, because I'm not hating on South Florida, but the traffic there is horrendous. And I think anybody who lives there can back me up on this. Michael, you know that to be the case. Debbie, you've been in South Florida, you know that as well. So you want to make sure that your services are close to where you're at, because you could spend hours and hours trying to get care going from place to place. Civi joining us from Birmingham, Alabama. Thank you. William coming in from Tampa. And again, I'm kind of slowing down here. I'm going to pop up this comment actually as we get into this, because I want to share this with you. This is coming in from Karen Stanley in Huntsville, Alabama. Let me pop this one up for you. Good morning from Huntsville, Alabama. I'm primary caregiver for my dad, managing a staff of 6 to provide around-the-clock care for him for the past 2 years. Kudos to you, Karen. I know that's not easy. I have a friend here who is a client of a type of situation. I feel like I'm running a home healthcare agency, and maybe one day I will. And mine will be quite different from some of the present industry where profits seem to supersede patients. I want a patient-centered but profitable organization. I believe it can be done. Karen, I applaud you. When I was in the thick of caring for mom, I was thinking the same thing. Started building out models, financial models, plans of what I would want it to look like. I thought to myself, I want every single person who needs home care to have the same care that my mother was getting. And I think your goal is commendable. At this point, start doing your homework, do your research. There's another woman here in Northern California that I did an interview with in one of our previous coffee chats. She started a home care agency, and she may be somebody to connect with. If you go into my Keeping It Real Caregiving website, which is keepingitrealcaregiving.com, you will find a previous Sunday coffee chat, and the interview is with a young woman who started a care agency here in Northern California. And get involved in different, again, it's an aging industry. So get involved with some of the different care organizations if you have the time now to be able to figure out, okay, well, how do you build this out? Each state is different as well, to understand what the guidelines are. And I commend you. I would love to have you stay in touch and let us know what you find out about starting off with a business. Jenna Marie joining us from Riverside. And yeah, Michael, navigating these choppy waters is tough. I want to share with you all a short clip from a taped coffee chat. And if you had joined me a few weeks ago, we had a little bit of audio issues. And so I re-recorded a coffee chat with Dr. Toni Miles. She is an epidemiologist, but she studies bereavement and loss. And so since in the chat, it said that a number of people have recently lost loved ones. And if we are caregivers, that is something that is going to be a reality, right? It's going to come up. And so she is doing research on how this impacts all of us and how we move through it. So since that came up in the chat, I want to play just a short snippet of that for you. And then of course, feel free to go back and watch the entire interview. It's a little bit longer, but Dr. Miles is passionate about this. And so she has some really good information to help us think about the loss, how we're feeling, how we move forward in that. And so let me change screens here. I'm going to remove this one. And then I'm going to play this one. Again, back with us is our special guest, Dr. Tony Miles. Thank you so much for joining us again for round 2 of our Sunday Coffee Chat and Support Hour. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Miles, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, your background. You have been in the aging field within research, education, personal connection for many years, and have played a huge role in helping so many other people. Tell me about that.
Oh, wow. I've been doing something in some capacity since I was a junior in medical school. That's how far back I go. In the 80s, I'll put it that way. Went to medical school at Howard in Washington, D.C. Did a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship at the National Institute on Aging, where I learned to be an epidemiologist. Been in public health for years and years and years. I have lots and lots of PhDs and masters that are now out working in aging. So I've been able to get my tentacles everywhere. And I have a couple of hundred publications on that topic. So here I am.
And that's why I like to have folks set themselves up, because we can read bios all day long, but when we actually hear it and we go, wow, this is your background. And just folks, I want to share this. This is written out so that I don't say it wrong. Dr. Miles is also an advisor to elder care initiatives, including the CDC Healthy Brain, Georgia's Alzheimer's Task Force, and the John A. Hartford Foundation, which does amazing work across the country in terms of aging programs, education, philanthropy, public policy, across the board. So our special guest this afternoon is seriously no joke. She knows her stuff and she's passionate about people. And so again, thank you. And our topic is talking about grief, loss, and bereavement. Similar, but all different. And your research focuses on bereavement care, bereavement counseling. Talk to us about what that means, especially coming out of and still now in this COVID world that we're living.
Yeah, it ain't done yet, to use a technical phrase. And I've been interested in the idea of the public health impact of large scale mass bereavement, we can call it, where large numbers of people are having the same experience simultaneously almost. It's like a flood, destroying all of these homes. And I started this work actually back in 2012. Couldn't get anybody interested. We could talk forever about why no one wants to talk about this, but it is clearly something we need to talk about. And then COVID came along, and now all of a sudden everybody wants to talk about it, which is great. So I really appreciate the moment to be able to talk about the fact that people who are bereaved, and that means someone died in your orbit. It could be a friend, it could be a neighbor, in addition to a family member. These are people who are close to you, and they die of something, and that their death injures you in some way if you're not ready or you don't have resources.
And just hearing you say that, if you're not ready, is there ever a way for all of us to think about death in a way that we could ever possibly get ready? Are there tools that are available for people, or does it just sort of hit us out of left field and we move through it?
Probably a little bit of both. But I moved to Georgia in 2011, and one of the things I've discovered down here is elderly Southern Black women are really, really good at preparing for this. A lot of, I say us now because, hey, I'm in the zone, do spend a fair amount of time thinking about, they buy headstones, they buy funeral plots, they lay out the idea of what their funeral will look like. I mean, they they really spend quality time and money thinking about that moment. And having personal story, having gone through that with my mother-in-law, she had picked out the headstone. I mean, we were, it was not easy, but her preparation made it easy for me to care for my husband, who was, the object of care. And so if you are fortunate, and this is the thing, if you're fortunate to have a chance to prepare, then you should take it.
And how helpful is that? Does it help to lessen the sting? Or does it just mean that now we've taken care of the logistical things in advance?
Logistics, I cannot say enough about logistics in advance. It's something, if you're not careful, that moment, because you're vulnerable, right? And people can sell you stuff. We're most open to being defrauded, unfortunately, when we're trying to plan all this stuff. And so if someone plans and all you have to do is pick up their planning book and run their game plan, I know this sounds really mechanical, but that's what it boils down to. Then you are able to deal with all the other emotional stuff that's happening.
Right.
And because funerals cost us a fortune.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when we talk about the emotional side of it, you shared a photo with me a short time ago that I want to share with our audience. And I think I'm just going to add this to our stream here, folks. And I want you to take a look at that. I'm going to put this photo full screen. And okay, there we go. I think that works. And this is just, it's powerful. But talk to me a little bit about this image.
Well, I mean, what you see is a person who has a giant hole in the middle of them. And I think, especially early on, in the first 24 or 48 hours after a thing happens, you feel that way. Like you have this huge hole, and what are you going to do with it? How are you going to live with this? And so the artist who put this statue, this was sent to me by a friend who'd lost her son. And she was in this really dark place. And so I can also tell you that the only thing that makes that hole smaller is time, if you can bring yourself to deal with it.
And we do hear that phrase that, time heals all wounds. So when it comes to, saying goodbye to loved ones, is there an easy way through it, or is it simply allowing yourself to feel and time? And what about those people who even over time are sort of stuck in that moment? How common is that? And is there anything else to do other than just time?
Well, like I said, the thing that I focus on, I leave the spiritual stuff to the spiritual advisors. They're trained to do that. That's their job. What makes it less difficult to bear is if you are not left destitute financially, if you're not homeless because someone has died in your orbit or lost your health insurance. Those things can have repercussions that we don't. I mean, part of what my work is doing is bringing that to the surface. We don't know what happens to kids when they lose their parents. We have no way of tracking children, for example. So preparation when you can is key. I mean, that is the wonderful thing about getting old. Is you are more comfortable with that idea.
There are so many things to think about, and something that we talked about previously, the difference between grief and bereavement. And I want to share now a definition of grief that is different from definition of bereavement. So the Merriam-Webster definition of grief is deep and poignant distress caused by or as if by bereavement. So two different words, similar but different. What is the difference, and why is it important that we understand that there is a difference?
Okay, so bereavement is just the fact that someone has died, period. You got a death certificate, it documents that, it is mechanical that way. Grief is how you feel about it. So, it makes the grief a little less onerous. And when it's like out of the blue, the grief it may be heightened. So grief is how you feel. Bereavement is external, and anybody can verify that.
And okay, for sticking with us, those of you who are here. I wanted you to be able to hear Dr. Miles' presentation again, because when I was speaking with her, it really drove home the point about the idea of bereavement and loss and grief. And so a couple of things. I want to hop into some of the comments that came in, but I want you to think about what we just heard in terms of the loss. And so if you are a family caregiver, we heard her say preparation is key, right? Preparation when you can is key. And so I feel like the girl who cried wolf, right? I'm constantly pounding the drum to say, wake up, folks, get ready. I know this isn't a fun topic. We'd much rather watch cat videos, right? So much more fun, so much easier. But this is something that if we don't think about getting ready, being prepared, and taking steps when we can, it will bowl you over on a couple of levels. So first, we talked about the grief and bereavement. So if we are a family caregiver, right, and we know inevitably something is coming, the idea of preparing in advance for the very end may sound overwhelming. It may seem kind of morbid. It may seem difficult. But I will tell you that is key. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about this morning. And Mark, if you're still on the chat this morning, feel free to hop in and share any of your experiences as well. And Louise just joined in and said, anticipatory grief is what I'm going through. And I did the same thing. And Louise, I can tell you that I'm, in a weird way, I'm kind of glad that I did, because when the time came, I felt as if I was prepared. You're never prepared. I still have moments where I just start crying for no apparent reason, but not as often. But one of the reasons why I want you all to think about these items is that when you're in the moment, you've been caring for your loved one, and now you have this different level of connection with your person, and then they're gone. It's very difficult to think about all the logistical things that you need to handle if you haven't already done those, because now you're emotionally exhausted. The exhaustion of all the months or years of care sort of hits you, like after maybe you've had a really busy week of work, and then Friday rolls around, and Friday morning you were fine, but then the minute you stop, you go, oh, I'm exhausted. Okay, it's the same thing with our caregiving duties, that we're just in it, right? So we stay in it. When it's over, we are exhausted and we don't even realize how tired we are. It's real hard to think about making plans for funeral arrangements, headstones, caskets, cremation. Where are they going to be buried? What are you going to do with all of their items? What do you want written in an obituary? All of these things. Do you have the financial means to cover what all of this cost? Again, the aging industry and the dying industry are industries. People make money. We have to plan for those items in advance. And so I was taking some notes as I was listening again to Dr. Miles. Plus, these were some items that I wanted to talk about just briefly this morning in terms of thinking about an obituary. I wanted to, that's going to be an article that I'll be writing about in the Keeping It Real Caregiving bulletin newsletter and on the website. It's just talking about obituaries. Right. So I'm going to plant that seed. Look for that article in the coming days/weeks. But you know how when you're watching different news programs and a big name person will pass, and within 10 minutes, the news station is running and what we call an obit, and it's all beautifully put together, and we know their history, and there are all these photos and music and clips of their entire career. Do you know why they do that? It's because they've planned ahead. That doesn't just magically happen, right? Maybe it's because I'm in the news business, but I would encourage all of you to think like that, right? Think to yourself now, I'm taking care of my loved one. It could be a year, could be 2 years, could be 3 years. None of us know. But when you plan, think of your loved one, think of their life, think of their life story. Do you want that summed up in 3 sentences that you've thrown together in the moment when you're at your worst and you're grieving and you can't think straight? Or do you want to craft something that's beautiful and telling and compelling about this person's life? I chose the latter, and it may sound a little morbid. Mark, you and I communicated about this. I had written my mother's obit almost 2 years before she actually passed, because she was information from family members, to talk to her about different things that she loved and were part of her life. And so when the time came, it was finished, and I could put in the date. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me after reading it in the newspaper and said, "Oh, that was such a beautiful obituary." And I thought, what? Who says that? And then I started reading some other obituaries in the newspaper, and I thought, oh, that wasn't a very good obituary. I knew nothing about that person, right? So I don't want to dive too deep into the weeds on that one, because I will be writing about it. But I encourage you to plan ahead. Start thinking about the end long before you get to the end. And also the financial part of it. You don't want to be scrambling at the last minute. So enough about obits. I wanted to, well, before we wrap up, so Mark just chimed in. I'm going to pop this up so you guys can all see this. I prepaid my mother's funeral services. She lives in Northern California with me, but her wishes are to be buried in New Jersey with my grandmother. It was expensive, just under $9,000. It was a tough process to think about, but I can't imagine doing this in the moment of grief. I plan on doing the same thing for me so that my daughters do not have to go through the process. Mark, you took the words right out of my mouth. We live in the same community. We used the same funeral home. Pre-planning for my mother was key. I don't know if I would have been able to do as much planning in the moment had I not done it in advance. It was already paid for, so that was off the table. Everything was already done. And yes, I think the same thing. I should pre-plan this for myself so that whoever is the person who has to handle it doesn't have to also feel the grief. And remember the difference between the grief and bereavement, it's different how we process it. If we're already planning for this, that's one element that we can remove from the equation so that we can just think about the person we've loved who's no longer with us. So I can't stress enough pre-planning. And that's all the way on the tail end. Now, I want to scroll back up to a comment that Jenny Marie had made, talking about, and again, this goes back to planning. Remember, we don't know what we don't know. So a lot of this comes into play, that I want you to force yourself to think about some of these issues. Even, again, it's not fun. I didn't want to think about it. I kept putting it off until I realized, no, you better think about this. So Jenny Marie, I'm going to pop up her comment. She says, Mom was discharged from hospice in March, and I have been advocating since then and appealing Medicare up the chain. Ended up on 3rd level federal appeal. In my opinion, it boils down to 2 things. The second part of that comment boils down to a few things. Whoever is on the phone with you, if they have empathy for your purpose, and that's when you're calling into some of the different services. Number 2, not everyone knows their job, so ask open-ended questions. Number 3, stand your ground when speaking with Medicare or any systems for that matter. And Jenny Marie, thank you for sharing that. This goes back to you don't know what you don't know, and being prepared. Having, if you just say to whoever's on the other end of the line, here's my situation, what do I need to know? They may not know the entire system as well. Right? There is so much at stake. So I would encourage all of you to say to yourself, I'm going to ask every question I could possibly think of. What all is covered? Let's say your person needs a wheelchair. Maybe they need help with extra bedding. Maybe they need extra help to have in-home care. And maybe they're a retired veteran or a retired military, more or less. Okay, so ask those specific questions. Say, my person has X, Y, and Z in their background. Am I covered for anything? My person may need a wheelchair or a walker. Am I covered for that? How do I get that? My person may need extra in-home therapy. Do I qualify for that? And if they say yes, then say, okay, what do I qualify for? How many days? How many weeks? How many hours? What type of training? Is the person, do I have to take them to a facility, or will somebody come to my home? And if somebody comes to my home, what is their training? What will they do? What will I need? You have to be that advocate who thinks ahead and ask every question and say to yourself, if I don't know the answer to this, I'm going to ask, and keep drilling down, keep asking until you sort of fill in the gaps, because there is so much. And I will tell you, there is actually one other thing. I didn't make the slide yet, so I don't know if I can pop it up for you, but I might be able to put it in the chat. So this conversation actually just came up in my household this weekend. We were talking about Medicare. And all right, so I popped out of my screen for a moment so that I can do, I want to call up another link for you. This is a program that I learned about when I went to the American Society on Aging conference in New Orleans. And one of my colleagues, we are in a program called which is a training program for the next generation of leaders in the field of aging who are people of color. And she works in she works in Kansas, and she works for a program that helps seniors. And she was telling me about this program that allows you to get guidance on your basically navigating Medicare. So I just put that into the chat. It is, and if you don't have your chat open, I said I didn't make a slide, so I can't share it with you. www.ship, as in sailing a ship, SHIP, help, all one word, shiphelp.org. www.shiphelp.org. And what this organization does is help you with figuring out Medicare, when you need to sign up, what information you need, what type of insurance you may already have, the A, B, C, and D, your Part A, your Part B. In fact, I'm going to take a quick screenshot for you so that you know what the website looks like. And then I will have to I'll have to turn it into a PDF before I can share it with you. So I'm working in the moment. How's that? On a Sunday morning, having coffee with all of you. Okay, so there's my screenshot. Now I am going to export it to a PDF file so that I can share it with you. And then I'll put it into the screen. Okay, so now let's see, we'll do this. And also, like I said, this morning was completely, unscripted. There's no guest on today's coffee chat. This is just us getting together. So I'm curious too. I want to hear what some of the wanted to hear from some of you as I move through this Keeping It Real caregiving journey that really is taking on a life of its own, which I love. What other topics would be good for us to dive into moving forward? And then I'll give you a little bit more information about what's been happening with my Keeping It Real caregiving. Really, it's right. So that slide is loading. Let's see. It says there was an issue with my file loading. So let me do that again and see if it'll upload. Maybe because it's in the moment. But while I'm doing that, I want to share with you a couple of other of what's been happening, basically. So I told you the background of how this idea got started, keeping it real caregiving, of how it started, why it started. And so after my mom passed, I started writing, sharing stories, and I thought, I have to just create a website. Do I know anything about websites? Not really, but you know what? I'm just going to do it. So I did it. Um, and then it kind of snowballed and people started responding saying, I'm in this too. This is great. What information can I get? Okay, there we go. This is there you go. This is the page that if you go to that website that I told you about, this is what it will look like. It is shiphelp.org, right? And this is the starting portal. And then each state has its own office. There's an 800 number on this page you can call. And again, each state then has its own office so that you are able to call and say, hey, I'm trying to navigate Medicare help. What's covered, what's not, what are the guidelines, what are the rules? I would encourage you all to check out this page. If you're working with somebody or helping somebody who's not computer savvy, go to the page for them and find the phone number and then call and you can help them. But this was amazing. And I can tell you, okay, so I was in the thick of caregiving all these years. I knew nothing about this until I was at the conference this year in April, the American Society on Aging Conference, as an ASA RISE fellow, the program that I'm going through, learning so much about the aging industry and ways to help more people. I encourage you to check out this webpage. And so let's see, where was I? Oh, I was just telling you about some of the things that have happened. So I started the website, and then shortly after that, I submitted the idea of keeping it real caregiving to a program hosted by Facebook Meta for a newsletter. And I was selected. And so I started crafting Keeping It Real Caregiving bulletin newsletter. So that's a twice a week newsletter. And my goal is to try to just find different news stories, different nuggets of information, personal stories, stories of other people to share with other caregivers so that we can all learn together. And Latoria, thank you for joining in as well. I see a new name coming into the mix. In the beginning of pop that up. In the beginning of starting my own caregiver business, again, so much to learn depending on what state you're in. It's different from every location, but do keep us posted here at Keeping It Real Caregiving. All right, so I'm going to come back out here to this screen. I'm going to remove that, and then I'm going to pop myself back up as well. Oh, no, wait, there we go. Okay, there we go. So check out that shiphelp.org site. Again, Keeping It Real Caregiving newsletter. And it's been a slow process of just gathering people together. But I will tell you, some really exciting things are happening because of that. Again, I mentioned that I'm involved with the American Society on Aging, the ASA RISE program. So I'm connecting with other people within the aging industry across all elements. And again, I will tell you, there is so much to learn. And one thing that I have gathered from this involvement is I say, well, we're all caregivers and we all see these challenges. Why isn't all of this fixed yet? It's an industry. There's a lot at stake. Until we gather all of our voices and we continue to push and push and push and know the system so that we have a better understanding, that system is not going to change, right? We have to take control of that and we have to be involved. And so one of the things I would encourage all of you to do, I'm going to actually I'm going to add my little ticker screen to the bottom of the screen here. There's a lot going on here, I know, but I want to encourage you I'm inviting you, I should say, to join the Keeping It Real Caregiving bulletin newsletter. It's keepingitrealcaregiving.bulletin.com. Please join me in this effort because collecting our voices and our stories matters. It can make a difference. How do I know that it can make a difference? I want to share another screen with you. So coming up this week is an event through the California Department of Aging, the Master Plan for Aging. Now, I know many of you are joining from states all over the place, but California is one of, I think the number is 5 states who have an active Master Plan for Aging in place, which means up and down, from local to county to regional to state, looking at the landscape of saying, what do we need to do within the field of aging? Our population is getting older. How do we do this? So coming up this Wednesday, I'm going to make this full screen. Coming up this Wednesday, through the Department of Aging, is the Equity in Aging Advisory Committee. Because I am so vocal, and I'm that person who's pounding the drum and saying, I'm the girl who cried wolf. I am involved with the Equity and Aging Advisory Committee, and I wanted to. Karen is hopping off. Karen, thanks for joining, and be sure to follow us with keepingitrealcaregiving.bulletin.com. Equity and Aging Advisory Committee. It's this Wednesday, and I will be presenting a short input to the committee, hearing from real caregivers, right? So some of you who say, nobody's listening to me, I am overwhelmed, I'm tired, I need help financially, where do I turn for services? One of the things that I am really working hard with Keeping It Real Caregiving to do is to connect with all of you, even if it's for a few minutes, to take these challenges and this information straight to the people who are policymakers, who have the ability to maybe make change, right? That's how it works, is that we have to keep saying, this has to change, right? This has to change. So this Wednesday, Equity and Aging Advisory Committee, I will be presenting a short overview, and I will literally be sharing with these policymakers comments from real caregivers of what some of their biggest challenges are. And so I will encourage all of you to take a look at the newsletter. I'm actually going to put the website or the link in the chat box again right now. Keeping It Real Caregiving. I can't see this morning, folks. Need my glasses. Keeping It Real Caregiving.bulletin.com. Subscribe and follow along, because I will have a link to this meeting. It's a public meeting, so anybody can log on, but I encourage you to please join. And I am sharing real caregiver comments to policymakers, because that's what it's going to take for all of us to join together to be able to say, hey, we need something different. We want our voices heard. So I know I've gone way over our 30-minute window this morning. But again, this was just kind of a quick little get together. Wanted to see who was out there, who might be listening. And I think we were able to share a little, just some good information. And that's what it takes, a little bit by little. And Mark has just popped in. Let me, I suppose moving forward, it would be good to discuss power of attorney, healthcare directives, etc. And yes, Mark, we have talked about that, but it's a topic that we could talk about almost every single week. A lot of healthcare facilities and financial institutions won't discuss much with you about your loved one unless you have these documents in place. Exactly. And we have, we meaning, and I say we because Keeping It Real Caregiving is really all of us. It's all of us. I will reshare in an upcoming newsletter a link to an article and actually a coffee chat in which we talked about power of attorney, healthcare directives. We talked about conservatorships, all of those items, having your documents in place, how you pull those all together. So yes, again, this goes back to that being prepared, planning ahead, being prepared. I cannot stress it enough. Do not put this off. I can tell you that actually coming up this week, I have a meeting scheduled with somebody who's in the financial planning area to talk about my own planning ahead. You know, what if something happens to me and I need care? Do I have enough insurance in place to make sure that I'm cared for? And now that I know how much it costs, it keeps me up at night. I literally have panic attacks sometimes thinking, what's going to happen if something happens to me? My mom had me. I don't have children, right? So for all of you who are in that same situation, we're kind of at this point where, are we able to completely turn the ship for those we're already caring for? Maybe not. But we have to turn the ship for ourselves, right? Because all of us are aging. This isn't just something that happens to, oh, it's those older people. It's we're aging as well, all of us, right? All of us are aging. And so I want to close out. Any other questions? The last thing. Items that you would like to see either Keeping It Real Caregiving revisit or some new topics and ideas. I try to to think of, okay, what's going to be important to people, but I also want to hear from you guys. What what would help what would help you for me to start digging into? Remember, I'm a journalist. That's what I do. And I'm looking for, I want to share with you my information so you can follow along. So that's uploading now. All right. So I'm going to pop, let's see, there it is. You can see that on the screen, right? And feel free to reach out. You can reach me at, or follow along again, a couple of different places. KeepingItRealCaregiving.com is the website. Newsletter. I'm trying to keep it short and to the point with just little nuggets that are helpful for everybody. KeepingItRealCaregiving.bulletin.com. You can subscribe there. If you are so inclined, as I continue to expand and grow and work to include more information, more video interviews, more live events, I am offering a premium subscription option as well. This is passion work, so any support is appreciated as I continue to build this out, and I want to help people. You can also follow me at Facebook at Julia Yarbo Media Group, and I try to cross-post, not try to, I cross-post information there so you can find information there. And this is a tough topic. Sometimes it's very personal. You can email me directly at info@juliayarbomediagroup.com. If there are topics, again, that you think, hey, Julia, you know what, maybe there's this person you could reach out to, or what about products? What about services? Anything under the sun, or it could be very personal too. As I said, some of the articles that are on tap or that are on my story list are talking about obituary planning. I talk a lot about personal products and personal care when you're caring for someone. The keeping it real part, choosing good adult diapers, choosing good gait belts, choosing good walkers, items that we don't really talk about. And, what is it like to get up in the middle of the night and change a diaper when you don't have children, but you have an elder? Totally different ballgame, folks. So we're keeping it real. These are the things that people don't often think about. But I do, because I lived it, and I want all of you to kind of think about it as well. So with that, again, I know I'm over my 30 minutes, but that's what I do. I talk. So I appreciate everybody joining this morning. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up this morning? And I'll let everybody get back to their Sunday mornings and what you have going on out there today. I don't know about you, but I'm going to have some more coffee, and then I'm going to kind of chill and get caught up on things. A lot going on, and welcome for this. It's a little bit, but I think every little bit helps, that we just know we're not alone. Sometimes just hearing other people say, "Oh my God, this is just so hard. I'm tired." I turn. There were days when I just, yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I think it was all leading me to this, to try to help other people. So one of the things I'm determined to do a little bit today and this week is get into my mom's closet and go through some of the stuff that's in there. And coming up on 2 years since saying goodbye to Miss Nellie, so it's time. So it's a process, folks. It's a process. Give yourself plenty of warmth and kindness. Give yourself some hugs. And again, pre-plan. It's tough. It's not easy. But if you do one thing a week where you do some reading, do some planning, and if nothing else this week, check out that shiphelp.org website. And of course, subscribe to keepingitrealcaregiving.bulletin.com. Do those two things, and that's it. All right, so that is it for this Sunday morning. Thank you so much for joining in. Go have some more coffee, go have some tea, enjoy your Sunday. If you're in Northern California, enjoy our cooler weather before the heat comes back in, and wherever you are at in the country. Thanks for joining us. Be kind to yourself as you move through this caregiving journey, and give hugs from me to your elders, and be kind to them. All right, everybody, that is it for now. This is Julia Yarbo saying, thank you, Robin. I appreciate that. Slowly cleared mom's closet. Prayers are with you. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, everybody, have a great day, and I will keep you posted on the next Sunday coffee chat and support session. All right, bye.